Um, uh, I will share screen first and then I'll pass it over to you. So,
Okay.
final reminder before I do start the recording, uh, everybody, if you're not actively asking or answering questions, put yourself on mute. And with that, let's get started. All right. Welcome everybody to conversation number 109. Hard to believe the next conversation will be 110. We're going to be talking the Haystack Paradox, what happens after AI creates a million ads. Some of them may be slop. I don't know. We'll talk about that. But as always, let's start by thanking our wonderful sponsors, without whom none of this would be possible. We'll start with Conductrix. They've been with us from the very beginning. Thank you, Matt, Nate, Ezekiel, Ashley, the entire team at Conductrix, so much for supporting the TLC, and also all of our newsletter sponsors, which starts again with Conductrix, but also Growth Book and Ask Why. Thank you so much for providing your thought leadership to the community, and thank all three of you for sponsoring Experimentation Island last month, actually just like a couple of weeks back, 1 week. It's all a blur. We had a great time. I hope all of you that were there, yeah, some of you on this call were there. I hope you had as much fun as we did. I know I had a lot of fun. I'm still, on the high from that. And thank you to Convert for sponsoring the Amazing Conversations channel each month. Take a chance. You could win money by getting to know your peers. And if you haven't checked out the new conversations that started last month, Marcella, who's on the call, is one of the people that helps make that possible. And she came up with this really cool new way of getting to know each other from last year. We just asked some sort of generic questions starting in February. They shook it up a little bit, made it a little bit easier to get to know people. Like in March, some of the getting to know you questions were like, what's the ideal way to spend a sunny afternoon? Or quick response questions that only require an emoji reaction to answer, like, what types of tests do you run? I mean, these are some really low bars of entry to go answer questions and get to know your peers. So it's a really great way to get to know your fellow TLC members. And last, thank you, Eddie Algalar, Blazing Growth, for sponsoring the TLC community. All right, but why you're here. First of all, if you're not following Juliana's newsletter, Beyond the Mean, why the hell not? It's at julianajackson.substack.com. Go follow it. I'll wait.
No.
No, like really, trust me, you're missing out if you're not following it. It is like fantastic content. Every time you read it, you're going to learn something. I know I do. It's really good stuff. JulianaJacksons.substack.com. Go follow it. It's good stuff. Juliana is one of my favorite people, full stop. Not just in this industry. She's just really good peeps. She's one of those people you go to when you want the answer, not just like the polished one, but not the safe one, like the real answer. And she always delivers. It's thoughtful, it's honest, and it's usually in a way that completely reframes how you were thinking about something. Every time she speaks, people learn, especially me. What I respect most about her is how deeply she understands the whole space, not just like a piece of it, but like how it all connects. The first time I heard her speak, it was the fullness of her understanding that really drew me. And I just wanted to get to know her better. And it helped me understand how little of the space I truly understood, from data science and AI and experimentation and customer value and, creative and products. She sees the whole system. And it's not just the little tiny pieces of it. And in this brave new world that we are all in, that is more important than ever before. And this talk is a perfect example of that. We've all been talking about generative AI and this massive unlock it has, and the creative potential. But with great power comes great responsibility. And if we can generate thousands and millions of creative variations, how do we actually understand what's working and what's not, and is anything actually meaningful? And, how do we not like completely lose control of our brand in the process? This is where she introduces the idea of creative intelligence. Not just creating more, but actually understanding and engineering what works. Lots of folks are good at seeing that there is a problem and telling everybody that everything sucks and everything's on fire and all of that stuff. But Juliana is bringing solutions. So, with that, welcome, my friend, Juliana.
Thank you, and no pressure,
No
because I
pressure,
was
no
listening
pressure.
to you.
We expect
So
solutions. All right. Let me stop sharing.
I'm very Eastern European, and I think Sunny understands what this means is that we are very bad at getting compliments, but also kind of like mad if we don't get them. It's like we're such a weird breed there in Eastern Europe. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here again. Again, I am lost for words to what you said, Kelly. I don't think of myself that, but anyway, let's not talk about me, and because that will take a long time of my issues, my family issues and daddy issues. But let's jump in. I'm gonna try to share my screen. I hope you can see it now. Okay, so this talk has been through some iterations. I've done it a few times by now. I changed a lot of things in it. Um, I kind of like started, I mean, okay, sure, the intro, let's move on. I'm Juliana. So I was talking to Tim Wilson about this, who's not here in the call. Tim Wilson. I was talking to Tim on Slack back in November last year on here on TLC and Measure Slack. I just jump from all the Slacks all the time. And we were talking about personalization. We're talking about the fact that we've been saying for 30 plus years that we're doing personalization, we're doing things at scale. And the issue that we have been saying for 30 years, 20, 30 years, is that we cannot produce enough content to match the segmentation of the market back in the 90s and then the internet. We cannot produce enough content to be relevant. But that quite, changed quite a lot because with generative AI, you can create thousands of assets just before launch. You just need to know how to prompt and understand image or video dimensions and parameters, so you know what to ask from the vision models. But obviously, if the fact that we can create assets at scale doesn't mean that the assets that we create are relevant. So I don't think we've never been better at marketing than we are today. And this slide and the next one I stole from my colleague Chris at Jellyfish, because he constantly says like we've never been better at marketing than we are today. We have so much content, so much data, we have agents, we have automation, we have scale. Everything that is happening nowadays with the tools and technology and frameworks, I even posted about this the other day on LinkedIn, like we have enough to be successful. However, why does growth feel like it's getting harder than ever? If you work agency side, you're struggling to sign new contracts or retainers. If you're a freelancer, you're struggling to find business. If you're working client side, you probably have dealt with layoffs and different, things and organizational changes because growth is getting harder. Just because um, we can create stuff, we have the data and we have the tools, that doesn't mean that will bring us business and money. So I like how this is again from Chris. He says that we are at a point of inflection because we are optimizing for a dying model. I think, and I always make this joke, and maybe this I never did this joke online, so let's do it. I want to know if you, and also if you saw this talk before, don't answer. But I want to know from the people here in the chat, just jump in and say, when do you think the funnel was created? It's the actual question. So throw some numbers. How many years ago was the funnel created? Don't put it in the chat because I'm not reading the chat. I'm just looking at my slides, so I don't see you guys. So just go out there, say a word, say some years. How many years ago
I
was the
like
funnel?
Sonny's answer. He said the Bronze Age.
Yes, I got this answer in from Lotta from Helsinki. She said 2000 years ago, and I said yes. Jesus came and said, "Let there be funnels, so all these poor bastards can measure conversions." So the funnel was invented a century ago, and yet in 2026, we're still making very big decisions with a model that was created a century ago, which should be alarming, right? Because there is no more funnel. We switched from funnels to algorithmic feeds. Everything happens in a very decentralized space. Experience today is chaotic, is fragmented, and is multimodal. So we are at an inflection point where in the last 20 years, we had this age of optimization. We were optimizing everything, but now it's more of an age of exploration that we're experiencing. And this is where creative intelligence sits. And what I'm seeing, because now I'm more in the media side of things, is that most brands will hit the ceiling on media optimization. Like you can do a lot of this good stuff and you will do it right, or you will do it maybe poorly. But in spite of doing all these things, the cost per acquisition is still high and the ROAS is still declining. And basically that begs the question, like, where is the growth? If we're doing all these things right, where is the growth? And when it comes to media, creative, the actual creative asset drives 50% of the campaign performance. So all the outlets like Kantar, Meta, and Nielsen, and even recently yesterday I was reading this report from Forrester or ANA, they're all basically saying that the creative asset drive 50% of the campaign performance. So everything that we just covered right here, it matters, but not as much as we think it does. So even if this is the case, even if creative quality, the creative asset drives this performance, it's still heavily unmeasured because every time a company starts a new campaign, they reset the learnings to zero. And they don't go back to do the lesson learned thing and use that historical data to make decisions for a new campaign. They don't use that data to enrich a creative brief. And while there's people that do use AI to generate creative assets, and I'm in the business where this happens because the company I work for has a tool that does creative asset generation, there's very few people that measure its effectiveness, and there's almost nobody that uses historical data to predict what will the next asset be, or what are some untested combinations of asset dimensions that could help. So this means that if today the creative asset carries all the strategic load because it's the only thing that follows people in this fragmented, chaotic, and multimodal areas, it's no longer just an ad, it's your storefront, your brand identity, and your closer. It does the job of a website, it does the job of an app. So if this is the case and we are not collecting any learnings, it's very, very hard to grow because we are as an industry so obsessed with channels. And that's why things like MMM exist. We're so obsessed with attribution. We're so obsessed to see where are our customers coming from. So we're chasing them across all these channels. But in fact, what really matters is that the asset is the only thing that is there. It's your, it's your new storefront. So if you treat the asset, the creative asset, as a black box, it makes transferable learning impossible. So all the measurement tools and platforms that have A/B testing integrated as part of the creative asset performance optimization, they treat the creative asset as a black box, like an atomic unit. So you will never know if you test a series of ads or variants, you will never know why an ad won or not. You will just know that it won. So it's kind of a black box, what you have in the PMAXs of the world, in Meta and so on. I mean, they are making changes. I was just reading recently Simo's newsletter from Simmer, and and Eddie probably saw this too. Meta right now is changing how campaigns are tracking clicks. So clicks will not be a whole cumulus of user actions. So they are making a separation between engagement and clicks because the whole industry in media measures CTR and CTR is God. So now it's going to be a bit harder to do that because of, the way Meta will measure things. So in a nutshell, for me, when I think about creative intelligence, I think about content and context. And I thank Matt Gersha for that because I had a lot of conversations with Matt about this topic over the last few months. And I was initially thinking just about the content, like what's inside the asset. I was very happy with the discovery that you can decompose a creative asset and you can break it down at all its layers and all its elements. But then I was talking to Matt, and Matt, being Matt, started talking about context, and it made a lot of sense to me. And let me put this in practice a bit. If you see this Vegemite ad in feed, you can say, yeah, it's a nice ad, it looks great. So, but it scores from a content perspective a 5 out of 10, right? But if you see this ad in context, like when Taylor Swift was going to Australia, so they did this huge banner, so she would see it from the plane. The context actually adds more into how you can perceive an asset or how you can feel or resonate and have emotions to it. Now the sad part of the story is that Taylor Swift flew private, so she never saw this ad. But I'm not gonna let the details get in the way of a good story here. So what I'm saying is, in fact, today there's absolutely close to no cost to create one more asset. You can just go and do it, and anybody can do it. And the thing is that ad platforms have zero interest in making you efficient because production might be cheaper, but media is not. And yes, the creative cost drops. You're not going to Cabo anymore. You're not filming with your crew. You're not spending 4 weeks to release a campaign. But the price to reach your audience is very high because the algorithms are still learning as well, because it's also a huge change for the ad platforms from how people purchase. Where do they purchase? Where do they find themselves in the journey? And there's also the conversation of work in media. When only 25% of the budget goes to the actual work itself, you pay the 75% tax. And this is what I've seen across clients of that we work with at Jellyfish. The rest is spent to be, served by the platforms. And in the end, you basically pay for the platform's education. That's kind of like what it is. Like they use your budget to learn what works. And they create this, how it's called the non-strategic churn at your expense. And you're just paying the platforms and you blame the platforms, but the platforms, again, have no interest in making you efficient. So kind of like the premise and hypothesis question enter word for it. I had when I started working on this project and kind of like experimenting with it was, what if I knew before I launch a creative asset what is the right strategy for the campaign? How can I help creative strategists, because we work a lot with creative strategists in Jellyfish, it's a big part of the business. How can I help them maybe write better creative briefs that fits the audience and the intent? How can we have better variations that satisfy this algorithmic demand? How can you be the able to jump and be culturally relevant? And now everybody is like with YouTube and everything that's going on, everybody's talking about attention and relevance and cultural moments. And maybe how do you see the impact of the creative quality in the same way you would do an MMM, right? So this is kind of like when I started working on the creative intelligence thing. I will say that it's not something I came up with at all. Like I found out from Eddie that he's been trying to do this. So shouts to Eddie. He also has helped me a lot with this, with thinking about this problem. So this is not anything new, but I think is very relevant to where we are right now in the industry. I don't think the industry was ready for creative intelligence before Gen AI and Gen AI image generation came to be. I think now we are at the point where there is so much content that is created every day that the measurement part makes more sense. And there's a lot of companies, not just Jellyfish or me, that does this. There's so much companies. AdScate is VidMob, so many tools that are attempting to do creative intelligence. So historically, when I heard people talk about creative intelligence, it's kind of like a bit of a conflation with creative optimization. It's not the same thing. And I'm here talking about multi-arm bandits, and I'm glad that I don't need to explain what a multi-arm bandit is in this course because I have to do this sometimes. But the multi-arm bandits have three big problems when it comes to media and creative performance and campaign performance. It's first, they're component blind. You will not know why an ad won. Sure, it won, but was it the headline? Was it the color, the subject? Was it the timing? You are not able to do that with a multi-arm bandit. You also cannot understand what is the marginal value that they have, the specific creative assets, because maps are not structurally built like that. And finally, they're great at finding the local optima, the local maxima, but they're not capable of mapping a creative space. And when I say map a creative space, I'm gonna talk more about what is actually a creative asset, but I just wanna preempt that with saying that probably the creative asset is one of the most highly dimensional spaces that you can imagine. And I try to kind of like represent how highly dimensional a space is when it comes to creative asset, because if you think about the video, it has so many elements. It has the transcript, it has the scenes, it has the people present, it has the dialogue, it has a scenography, it has so many elements. And if you multiply that one variant that one control with, let's say it has 10 variants across 5 platforms, across 5 audiences, the space becomes very, very high. So the need for creative intelligence, it's right there because it maps the topology. So it maps the entire space, not just the assets that win, but what is the actual structure? What is that organizational memory that's missing from companies when they always resort to zero when they have to build a new campaign? So let's talk about what is a creative asset. Most people, including myself, before I started thinking about this problem, I was just thinking it's a video, it's an image, sure, it has transcript, sure, it has a CTA, like I was just thinking it simple in very simple ways. But in fact, it's a very high dimensional coordinate in a space that is defined both by quantitative and qualitative variables. So I like to give the example of a GA4 event here because everybody knows what a GA4 event is. If you think about the sign up event in GA4, sure, it's a sign up, great. But where did it happen? Did people come from Facebook? Did they come from Instagram? Uh, how many fields were filled? Were all the, like it was something skipped? Like there's a lot of context to that one singular event. So equally with creative assets, it's a lot of a lot more behind just the image or the video or the carousel that you see. You will have concepts, you will have the content per se, and then you would have the context. So these are very, very important when you think about it. And I think even now, like just with this slide, you can imagine how highly dimensional that space can be when you have some assets have hundreds of variations. So I have an example here. I did this, my ad for 137. I did this with Nano Banana. So you see, even my dumbass can do an ad this day. So it's that easy. I'm doing this serum. And you see, this is my OG. But then these are its variations here, where I change just very simple things. But it's the same, it's the same thing. And imagine that in a real world environment, this would be, I don't know, 4,000, 40,000 variations of the same ad, but you change different things based on audience, based on platform, based on goals, based on business model, and so on. So the space can get quite big. So if every ad is a unique combination of multiple variables, what happens when we create this huge set of variants that I was preparing you guys from? You get the creative space. So creative space, the way I define this, is a space that synthesizes past campaign performance, taxonomies, brand guidelines, tone of voice, messaging, and various other asset variables. So this data can be used to predict future performance of creative assets. So the way I see it, and again, I'm in a privileged position because I work for a company that has a tool that does asset generation. So that means a data warehouse, it means taxonomy and labeling. So one thing that is very important for this type of exercise, like you don't need to use my tool, you can have your own historical data that can exist in BigQuery, for instance, or in your, data warehouse of choice. It's all this thing, all that I'm talking about today is just a very good hygiene on labeling and taxonomies. Like you just need very good labels. You need to know exactly how are you defining things and to have good taxonomy. Like I think this is a good advice to have good taxonomy. But even for this specific thing, out of the box, when you build a campaign, you will not have asset decomposition. So basically, you will not have an asset broken down to all its conceptual pieces. This takes a bit of work and data transformation and engineering, but this is not impossible. It's something that you can do right now with a vision model. And with you can use AI a lot for this. It's actually good at this. This is one of the good use cases. Um, so this is when I kind of like got Gershaft. And yes, Matt, I'm sorry. I'm using this, and I messaged Matt on LinkedIn on Slack. I don't know. I've been messaging this man on off course sometimes. I'm sorry, Matt. It's out of love. It's because I like you. Um, I messaged Matt and we started talking about response surface methodology, about factorial ANOVA, about experimental design, and so on. He gave me a lot of links. So then one night I was, because like a normal person would do, would just stay until late and read about stats. And I went in Claude and I played a bit with a bit of synthetic data and I tried to do this kind of response surface. And I was like, oh shit, this is really interesting. So in practice, I've done this in with Cloud Code. This is a response surface. It's a three-dimensional one. So I think I'm so happy that I'm in this call that I don't need to explain the slide. So it feels so good. I feel good right now. But I have three dimensions. I'm talking about a video, and it has a product timing. It has a copy length, so like the text that is on in the video, and then I'm looking at CTR as the whole industry is looking. So if you see here in this response surface, what I'm noticing first is like some high performing regions, means these high performing regions will have a combination of things. So if you look on the product timing dimension, we have a 3.5 uh 3.53 seconds plus a copy length of 45, let's say, characters or 47. This is a really good region. So what does this mean is basically when you are building a creative asset for this specific use case, this is a good combination of elements that would work well if you were to go live with it. So you have to test strategically. Mostly everybody will like you can launch 10, 100 to 500 ads covering different creative dimensions, and you can use that data basically as a starting point. There's companies that use synthetic data for this and synthetic users. That one of that company is called AdScate. I really love what they're doing. They're actually doing response surface methodology. I met with their CEO for a call the other day. I'm very impressed with them, AdScate. Um, so you just need a sample, a very good sample for specific creative dimensions. Here again, I will say this is kind of like what I'm struggling with right now. Maybe that's why my voice is kind of like if I'm not on my high energy. I'm struggling with the labeling part. The labeling part is the most important. Like I cannot stress how important it is to have um, consistent labeling for your assets. And yes, there is some out of the box one that you will get in the decomposition process, but it does require still human intervention because there are specific things that only a creative person will know about that asset. So it's important that that is part of it. And then basically you will map what is the performance landscape. So it's kind of similar to what I was talking to Matt on Slack earlier. It's if you have this data warehouse, if you have this data, you will run a regression model on it, and then you will be able to get the specific, combinations that drive results and the results that don't. And for interactions, you have to be it's a bit more complicated than it is for main effects. If you get just like for instance, and this is kind of like how the state of now is you run an asset and you would use platform data to make inferences about the performance of the asset. But it's not broken down that well into all its components. It would be components like color, it would be components like a CTA or like primary object. It's not very granular because it's quite hard. So most of the measurement that happens from my experience and anybody else like Eddie, feel free to jump in. It's a conversation. It's seen through the lenses of paid media. So it's seen through the lenses of ad platforms. That's how you measure mostly the performance. And that's kind of like how I'm looking at it right now in this presentation. But in the back of my head, it's not enough. It's really not enough because you are missing a lot on the qualitative data. For instance, an example. You can get a lot of performance data from the ad platforms, but what if at the same time at user campaign, there are some super specific topics and cultural moments that you're missing in your industry that you could find out by investing in I can't believe I'm saying this, geo or AEO, like the new SEO. Like if you know that's let's say you're a skincare company, or you're selling cosmetics and on exploding topics, which is kind of like the tool of choice for this, you have skincare niacinamides, and ladies on the call will know, will know what I'm talking about. If you have like this very specific ingredients that are popping right now, which happens a lot in the cosmetics industry, and you have a campaign that is focused on vitamin C, no matter how much you do and how much data you have, granular data you have from a paid media perspective, you don't have that data added in. So even if you can do okay, you are not owning that cultural moment. So as I'm working on this and talking about this, I discovered that performance data, yes, it's great, but it's not enough. And then of course you identify specific patterns into the assets elements, and then you can use those patterns to score assets that you haven't launched yet, because you basically learn from historical data, and then you can make this type of recommendations and predictions. As I said in the Slack thread earlier, this is not how response surface methodology is intended to be used in experimental design, from my understanding. I'm doing it a bit kind of differently because I'm looking backwards to historical data. It's not necessarily exactly one-to-one as it's intended to be done, but it's very helpful. And if you have any questions, ask Matt Gersha. And then, and then in the end, when you find these combinations and main effects and interactions, you will basically focus on those to launch them. So a big thing that I need to say here is that this is the same concept that is behind MMM. So a working name that I have for this is creative mix modeling, because it's basically the same type of multivariate type of testing and type of, logic. But instead of doing it for channels and media, you do it for creative assets. Basically, MVT, it's basically MVT. Now, this is where I'm excited about this part, because it's kind of like something Matt was talking about in his presentation at Super Week. And I'm excited because we're gonna go to Measure Camp Helsinki next week, and we're gonna do a session together. And it's kind of like it's one of my highs, I guess, of my career, because I love Matt so much, and I'm just so excited. Like, okay, I'll stop. Anyway, so yes. To understand the creative performance, you need to look beyond the main effects, like the single asset dimensions. You need to always consider the interaction effects, like what is the combination of specific asset components that, produce some sort of, it's kind of like Matt's opera stories, like two things together are not the same as, they are separately. Um, so why am I asking myself this question? If you are still with me and remember in the beginning of the talk, I was saying that 50 to 60% of the performance of a campaign comes from the creative asset. So that, my question was, so does that mean that the main effects and interactions of the elements of a creative asset explain this performance, could explain it? So you have the main effects, and again, I don't have to explain this for the people in the call, which is so refreshing. These are basically just the impact of a single creative element, like the color or headline or CTA on performance. And this is perceived independent of other variables. This is kind of the industry standard right now. So the people that are doing creative effectiveness or creative performance measurement, they do this, and it's okay. Like, I'm not gonna say, I don't know, Kelly, I see only your face and you're laughing, and if I'm being trolled in the chat, I'm not looking at it. So if you guys, I prefer I'm here nerding with Matt. I know. I'm gonna stop. But this is the industry standard. Most people look at main effects, and I want to say that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's okay. It's not, sure. Do I think it's enough? No. But is it good enough? I think so. I think in general, like if you look, for instance, this, what is the CTR lift based on the timing of your video, or like the free shipping CTA that you have, the blue background? I still think it's better than nothing, and I still think it's a step forward. Interactions, though, I'm very excited about interactions because it gives a bit more context. And as you remember, I was saying earlier, it's not just the platform data that I'm looking at or thinking about. I'm thinking about brand lift studies. I'm thinking about GWI with audiences. I'm thinking about a lot of data sources that you can plug in, and then the inference becomes more interesting from my point of view as an analyst, if I, layer all these things in. So an interaction basically says that the combined effect of two or more elements differs from the sum of their individual effects. So they work differently than they work apart. And Matt has a cool story about this with the opera, and you should check out his Super Week talk. It's I liked it. So this is how kind of like, and I have the slope chart here because Tim Wilson said that he likes slope charts. It was a joke on LinkedIn, so I'm just here doing slope. I like slope charts myself. But here, as you can see, I have two types of backgrounds and two types of CTAs. And basically, an interaction effect will be seen as a crossover kind of point when, context determines the winning combination, and context is the keyword here. It's not just actually the element itself. It's like, what is the context of that specific element? So I really love interactions. Now, can we control all of this stuff? It's also one of those questions, right? And it's something I'm struggling with myself as I'm actively working on this project at my job. You do control the color, the copy, the timing choices. You control the platform specific optimization that you want to do and the audience creative fit. Like that is what the amazing people that build these creatives are doing. But this is exactly that 50 to 60% that we can control. This is very important to know. Now you cannot control the platform algorithm changes, randomness, competitor campaigns, but nobody can. So like you shouldn't worry about that. Like that's what always gonna be there no matter how much the market changes. So I always think that if 50% drives 50% of the performance is driven by the creative asset, it will always come from the main effects and the second order interactions. But here comes the the fun part, right? This is when I'm gonna depress you a bit. Oh, this is funny. So yes, you do not need to test every combination, but you need to understand the space well enough to predict. In the real world, you will have five colors, five headlines, three CTAs, two timings, three platforms, four audiences. And this is just a small version of it. So I have this lattice here, and it all actually started with this lattice because when I was talking about this with Matt, we were talking about the lattice, and when he said the word lattice, I instantly could think about how does the space looks. So you see here, you have this local maxima for the best performing variables in the bunch. But this is just a small piece of the highly dimensional space where your creatives exist. So creative intelligence, the whole purpose of it is you learn the topology. What is the structure of the creative space? This is my representation of how this actually can look in practice. So this is my control here. And I have one creative asset, 8 dimensions. So that means there can be almost 40,000 combinations of the same thing. And this is an understatement here because most enterprise companies will have a very, very big creative space. So if you look at this, I try to do this to the best of my ability. There's so many combinations. So this is 43,000 for one creative concept. So let's say I tested 287 that teach the model something about the rest of the ones that haven't been tested before. So the idea is you cannot test everything, but if you test a very good representative sample for specific labels that you're interested in, that sample will teach you so much about the ones you haven't tested before. So you will never start from zero knowledge. And I always try to say this is that um, campaign 10 is going to be so much better than campaign 1 because it learned from the previous 9 campaigns. So this is like that compounding knowledge. And I know in CRO this exists already. Test and learn, documentation, so on. The media is a bit kind of not in the same. Like I know this seems so obvious for somebody that does CRO. It's like you're not doing this. Like this is what we do. This is why we have Airtable for. This is why we pay Airtable for. But in media, it doesn't really work like that. And creative people are very spontaneous. Everything is very gut feel. It's very reactive, especially, I don't know, if you're a challenger brand where you are supposed to function on speed, on being, there, responsive. So this is kind of the way I found that you can use this type of, you can use machine learning and you can use a regression model to do this type of testing and learning so you don't start that campaign from zero knowledge because testing thousands of combination of creative assets is not feasible for most business because you have the contextual variables, you have the creative space, and it's n combinations that if you really want to test this, you will burn the budget and time, and it's not worth it. It's really not worth testing everything. This is one of those moments where it's not worth testing everything. This is not a use case for a classic and traditional testing. So let's put this in practice, and I'm almost done. So as you might know, if you work with media, you have pre-flight, in-flight, and post-flight. This is like industry standard. Creative intelligence is the same. Most companies will do some sort of in-flight learning, some sort of post-flight learning, but not too much done pre-flight. I will use this creative asset that I showed you earlier. We have the content here. As you can see, we have a headline, a background color, a face, a product timing, CTA, offer, copy link. So this is my decomposition of it. Normally in the regression model, this you can do that decomposition if you have labels. I think I'm gonna get a t-shirt. Clean your labels. Make sure you have labels. And the context of it is we have it, it's an Instagram reel, we're going for Gen Z, it's an e-commerce conversion, we're going mobile, and we have in-feed organic. So in pre-flight, this is when you are supposed to validate before spending. So first of all, you need to look at, does my asset follow the brand standards, logo placement, color palette, messaging tone, messaging copy? This is very important. All industry, will be in the same thing. Then you go into platform best practices, and I know we hate best practices, but when it comes to media, you must follow best practices, especially when it comes to platforms, to ad platforms. We need to make sure that the asset is adapted for each platform. So this is something called asset adaptation. It's a very important thing because if the asset is not adapted to the ad platform that you want to serve it on, whew, you'll have a lot of issues. You must have guardrails here for your creative asset. How do how many variations you want to spin, how much you can go crazy with it. Then this is when, if you would do the response surface methodology and you would use this regression model on your historical data, you can avoid wasting these media dollars because you can use the scores from based on your creative space to map and score the asset before you launch. So let's say you have this new ad that I showed you. So I'm going to look historically. If I go back to one slide, I want to go historically and see, well, if I have Gen Z, what type of product timing should I choose? What type of combinations of backgrounds and product placement worked in the past for Gen Z? You can do this obviously in a simple dashboard. I'm not a fan of dashboards. I actually think this is an excellent use case for agentic AI. Like this is where I would use agentic AI. You can create a library, like of all your previous campaign performance. You can document the combinations, you can document the interactions, and then you can use an agent that basically goes and reads this already marked down data that you have. So the agent does not do any analysis. And if you know me, you know my opinions about LLMs and analysis. So this agent will not do analysis, but it will go back to something that you previously have done, and it's just retrieving this and does a synthesis versus the analysis. So that's the purpose to have this prediction score is. And of course, very important, does your asset fit with your audience's personas and their intent? So let's see how it looks. So if I was in an ideal world, let's say I'm scoring this asset to my historical data, to my asset performance library, and I see that my brand guidelines passed, the platform best practices are there, and the audience fit is great. Then I'm starting to look at the decomposition of the asset, and I'm getting some scores based on historical data, but I'm also getting a risk notification here. The product appears in the reel at 2.5 seconds. Based on the historical data that we had, Gen Z prefers this product to appear faster. And it was actually just a recent, I think Meta, Eddie, maybe you know, because you're more tapped in than me. I just saw that in Meta, they lowered the time when they start tracking clicks and engagement because they think things are happening very fast. So when you get into this point, you have to stop and make a decision. Do you launch now? Do you launch in 2 weeks? Do you change your original, do you change your variant, your original variant? And then if you do, what is the recommended budget? What is the expected ROAS? Like these are things that you need to stop and think about before you go live. Good. Well, you're in flight. It's 48 hours in your campaign. You launched it anyway. And I also make this joke like I'm gonna get fired, so I'm just gonna launch it. I'm gonna YOLO it, see what's happening. So when you're in flight, and this happens, it happens with some platforms. It's done okay. This is something also that I think some media platforms are able to show you, not to a decomposition level, but they can show you the performance from a media perspective. If you would have done the response surface methodology and it's attached to your ad platforms, then you all see in life what specific elements are driving performance of your asset and its variations. What is the marginal value, which this is the good part that was missing from a multi-arm banded perspective. You can see what is the incremental lift if you change specific things in your asset. What are the interactions? Yay, my favorite part. And then can you make any quick fixes to improve the results? So if I have the same asset right now, I have it in flight. I'm seeing here that the CTR is okay. It's close to my prediction based on the historical data. Variance is underperforming, and I'm getting again the same notification. I'm saying, well, actually, the product visibility is really affecting because we told you that historically the product visibility should be faster. It should appear faster in the reel. Gen Z attention drops after after 2 seconds on reels, so you're losing a lot of CTR versus the prediction. So, but in your variants, and this is what's working well. You have the blue background, the shop now button, the face, and free shipping. This is stuff that is working well, which is great. So you have to have a decision here. Do you kill the original variant? Do you find the optimized version that is performing well and you scale it and you increase the budget? Like this is again, this is the human part of it. You have to make a decision when you have this data. So let's say you just YOLO'd until the end. So we are now at oh, this repeated. Okay. So we are now at post-flight. In post-flight, this is after in the CRO component of the test is done. What are my lessons that I have? In this context, what I want to use and see after post-flight is what are the specific combinations of elements that consistently work for a specific audience? What patterns should I avoid next time? What new combinations should we test based on the predicted performance? And then finally, you get to this point, like every campaign learnings will have to feed back into the pre-flight model. So next time when you have a new asset, this goes into it and it will have a weight on how that asset is scored. So this is my post-flight analysis here. By the way, I did this with React.js with Claude. So this is not Jellyfish. I have to mention this is not Jellyfish technology. This is just for design, for visual purposes. So we see that everything that the model was able to recommend worked fine. But equally, we see what are some underperforming patterns for Gen Z. So besides the product timing, we identify that red-orange backgrounds plus learn more doesn't work. Text-heavy designs do not work. So basically, the message is you have to avoid using this next time. But then this is some cool combinations that you can use, which is green background plus shop now plus 1.5 seconds product timing. And the same formula would work on TikTok. So again, as I said earlier, with creative intelligence, you have compounding knowledge. So campaign 10 is smarter than campaign 1 because the model learned from all the campaigns before it. So this is kind of like why I said in the beginning, it's a bit away from the mentality of optimization that we had for 20 years. And it's more about exploring different things and exploring different ways to grow, exploring different ways to build creative assets. And I'm very passionate about this. As you guys can see, I get excited sometimes. Sometimes I get demoralized. Sometimes I get excited again because it's not easy to do this. I think if you would like to test this, I would start with your campaign data wherever you have it. And I would play with some labels. I would work with your marketing team and I would set some very good labels. And then I could just test the regression model on it and see what you can accomplish. But at scale, enterprise level, is quite complicated. I will say that. So the commercial value for the consultants in the call, it eliminates the learning gap. You understand exactly which components work, which produce ad fatigue. It removes the guesswork from this. You write better briefs. You write better creative concepts. And basically, you understand what actually makes people click, what makes people purchase. So it's a really cool space to be in. And I'm done. I don't know. Was I at time? I don't know. I feel like I'm disconnected from
No,
everything. Let me see you guys. Are you guys still
dude,
here? Okay. Vasi, here, Vasi. I saw
that was
Vasi. I love
amazing.
Vasi.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
You saw me laughing earlier. It's because in our big lungs, when we first started talking about it, Tim Wilson jumped in and I guess read the whole thread and dropped a I've been Matt Gershoff sticker in image in the chat in the TLC
Yeah.
calls. So that's what made me
Yeah.
laugh. Seemed appropriate. So I have a bunch of questions that I wrote down, but I want to let other people start. Does Yeah, yes, exactly. That's what he did.
Trying to check right now.
Uh,
Okay, okay,
Jen is
good.
holding up her sticker.
I don't have mine anymore.
Yeah, I took mine off my laptop.
I think actually Tim might have given me one. I need to look in my super weird, but not now, not now.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite story of that is Heather asked for a TLC shirt that says I've been Matt Gershoff. She said it would land differently for her.
I
Anyway,
want one of those too.
does anybody does anybody have a question before, or I can start? Let me start with my question and maybe it'll unpack other people's. So one of the things that you talked about and it came back to it multiple times is the importance of labels, and you called them multiple different things in different times, the taxonomy, blah 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 blah. So, and then you also said this is a perfect use case for AI,
Mm-hmm.
but also AI gets things wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
can you talk to us about the process of number one? Yes, cannot cannot can't overstate the importance of the labeling of everything in the taxonomy and doing this. And yeah, great use case for AI. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
But also AI gets shit wrong. So how would you recommend somebody go through the process of making sure that their content is correctly labeled up front? How could they use AI to do it and then use humans to make sure it's right?
No, this is a great question, actually. It's not a bad question. So
Of course it is.
when I say AI, I don't think I'm not thinking LLMs. Like I never think about LLMs. I know that there is I know how things are being, said. When I'm saying this is a good use case for AI is because an AI tool that you can use is computer vision. So computer vision is exactly specifically created to analyze an image or a video. This is its own purpose. So this is nothing that has to do with tabular analysis or, mathematical calculation. It's simply a model that is, it's based only on like supervised learning that knows how to basically say this, it was like in Silicon Valley when Gene Yang created that hot dog app. Yes, hot dog, not hot dog, And then, yeah, that's exactly how this works. So you use a computer vision model that is able to analyze the video or the image and is able to break it down into specific, elements. Then another good use case is those elements will be text-based. So LLMs are extremely good at text. LLMs are not good at numbers, but they're very good at text. So if you use an LLM to parse through textual data, that's perfectly fine. And LLMs, and again, like I have my grief, and if you read my newsletter, like I don't even need to talk about this. But I will say, when I first had to parse through 500,000 reviews, I used the specialized language model because LLMs were not there yet. Today, the LLMs are there yet. Are there, not yet. Like the LLMs are way better than they used to be 3 years ago. And I think the best example I can give you is with Claude. I was using Claude last night to do this architecture. And then they just launched the thing that you can click on the architecture and then it's going to do a breakdown of the architecture. I've never seen that before in the interface. So LLMs are becoming very good for textual purposes. For math and numbers, they're still suck, but I'm sure, that's you wouldn't want to, that's not the weapon for that fight. So the labeling thing, if you use computer vision and you use an LLM, it's perfectly fine and it will work. Of course, there's a lot of data transformation and engineering required that you have to show what does good look like. There's a lot of manual work still involved. But if you do some few shot classifications and you teach the model to recognize what good looks like, then it's able to produce that afterwards. And most of the tools, for instance, that do social listening nowadays, they use computer vision and they use the same type of approach to take I don't know, an image or
Mm.
comments on a post and the metadata and do that analysis. So it's good. This is for what is good. Uh, this is a good use case for it. Um, yeah, that's my answer. Like I will shit on LLMs any day if I can.
All right.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
Yes. Thanks, Matt. I just looked at the time. So
I'm
I will
sorry.
add that I used the only question, but if others have questions, prop them over in the TLC calls channel. Uh,
Yeah.
it is a little late for Juliana, but I'm sure she'll answer over the next few days. But Juliana, would you be willing to share your slides?
I can share some slides. I cannot share them all. I
Like
I can't.
what
I'll
you're
share.
willing to share as PDF would be lovely. If you
Yeah.
can take out whatever you can't share and then
Yeah.
share what you can as PDF, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
recording I will share in the next couple of hours once it's ready processing. And sneak peek, Sonny and I are putting together a series of panels that we're pretty excited about. We're in the process of inviting various people. I'm not going to say who yet because we got to wait till they say yes, but that's coming soon. And one more sneak peek, and this is pretty super secret. Experimentation Island is getting a new name and times two next year. So east and west. So for those of you who were on the East Coast, uh, still going to be an East Coast version. And now there will also be a West Coast version. So for those of you who said, come west, we hear you. We're coming west.
That's
So
so cool.
yes, 2027 will be on the East Coast and the West Coast.
I have
So
a final question. Vasi, are you at the office? I just noticed.
I absolutely am, yeah.
Is Javier there too? Very important question.
No, no, no. But thank you so much. It was like amazing and so interesting concepts, the creative intelligence. Thank you so much, Juliana. And thank you so very much, Kelly, for doing like this platform and Matt and everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. I had a good time and I hope I made you excited and not depressed about this. I was trying to be excited, but like the more you do it, the more you realize like it's not really exactly how it was in that link that Matt sent me. Yeah.
I, as always, I mean, not always do I take extensive notes during a TLC call because I'm so busy like monitoring and everything, but I took 3 pages of notes. So I hope you know that is like I learned a lot.
Well, I'm happy to be here and I'm excited about Experimentation Island West and also those panels. I didn't get any invite to those panels.
Uh, hint, you're one of the invitees. Coming
I mean, if it's you and Sunny, I'm down.
soon. Juliana's like, I'm very busy, but love you, my
I
friend.
can say no to friends.
I know.
It
That's
was
so
so nice to see everybody and especially you, Jen. I haven't seen you in ages, and I wish Eddie would show his face, but he's never showing his face. But this
ah,
okay. A ver,
wait, where's your
así.
gear? Who are you repping today? I am feeling very let down at the moment. Like,
Not
bye,
today.
Eddie.
I was in the hospital the past 3 days because of my son, but I'm not gonna.
Oh
We'll
God,
Oh,
get to
no,
that in another day. But
oh,
yeah,
no.
I
hope he's
was
feeling
not
better.
prepared. I didn't have any client calls today, so that's why I have
That's nice. That's always
no.
nice.
That's always nice. For those of you who don't know, Eddie normally looks like a race car driver because he's always repping whatever vendor he is vendor and client he's supporting. It's hilarious. But I'm glad your son is feeling better. But,
Yeah, yeah.
all right.
Thankful too. But
Very. All right.
Okay.
Bye
Well, thank
all.
you for having me. It's nice to see everyone.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye.